I'm assuming you can. I'm just going to carry on unless anyone says anything. Yes, so we've grown exponentially, and you know, when you grow exponentially, you need to sort of think about how you're going to deal with management and making sure people that work in different parts of the organization understand what's going on and what perhaps your shared values are, your what you're doing together, really. So we've got a cafe bar, we have an events team that do kind of weddings and events. We've got a lab where there's people working in tech and academia. And we've got a cinema, of course. So you're dealing with a lot of different people that are, you know, have got different preoccupations and different types of roles. Personally, I manage about 7 people that all work on quite different projects. So they work on production, they work on exhibition across the region, and they work in cinema as well. They're all really different personalities with, you know, just, you know, work with different communication styles. There's people that are introvert, people that are extrovert, and everyone needs something that's slightly different, which is complex when you're just one person. But yeah, as some starting principles, what I would say is what I've realized over the years of managing, you know, the more you put in, the more you get out of people, the more you think about how you can get the best out of somebody, an individual, and get to know them, get to know what they like, what their strengths and weaknesses are, the better the performance will be. But also doing work on yourself as a manager. I mean, I don't know how many of you are managers, but also looking at your own weaknesses and strengths and the things that, you know, where you're sometimes a bit challenged, and trying to understand that and unpick that will help you, I think, be a better manager. And also, like, in terms of when you get a new member of staff, it's really spending the time to understand like how you will work together, how often you will meet, what works. Some people don't like meeting at all, and you have to kind of get it out of them. Others are constantly wanting to meet and interrupt you, which might be good, might be bad, but it's just kind of making the time to kind of get some rules of engagement. There on the right-hand side, you can see Helen Jaffa, who's a great addition to the team. She's our head of people. So we've always had a kind of HR function before, but it was very basic. It was like someone working part-time in the finance team. Whereas with Helen, we've got someone that really is looking at the culture of the organizations, at policies, at training, and also supporting managers to do their job well, which I think in film exhibition specifically is something that we've neglected over the years. So we often, you know, people work their way up, they join the organization, they might have no management training whatsoever. They don't, you know, they've not been exposed to management training, which wouldn't be the case perhaps in a more corporate sector. So to make sure that we've got someone that can offer training to the staff has been really, really important. I wanted to show that short film, Alexandre. Is that possible? I can't actually hear you, Alexandre, but
he said yes.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, if you could play the short film. So we made this short film. We made it because post-COVID, we were having to recruit a lot of people. You know, we'd cut back on staff, and we realized that we needed to make ourselves look quite attractive. So we asked the team to do this little film. Can you hear the sound?
Because this career change is unlike I have ever attempted before. Working at Watershed has given me the chance to finally indulge my inner creative that
Maybe you need to turn down the...
to get by in my career in the past.
Working at Watershed just feels like a really accepting place, a place where I kind of can be myself. place where you can step outside and think differently and take risks, and that's really, I really appreciate that.
I feel so
where I saw people who looked like me,
Mary, hello.
felt included.
Okay, if you're speaking, we can hear you. Please stop. We will figure this out somehow.
Our DMs are like super supportive,
Do you got a situation here?
which is lovely, way more than in any other job that I've had.
Oh,
Each day is different. It's dynamic, and there's so much change and the difference that happens in the organisation.
It's a beautiful building.
they're working on this.
It's on the harbour side in Bristol, which is one of my favourite spots in Bristol.
What I love the most about Watershed is the people. Well, not just the people that work for the organization, but anyone that collaborates with us.
We Are you, Maddie? Can you please tell us something? Say something, so we can check. We can check if no, we can hear you. We can't hear you. She is talking. Can you hear me, Maggie? Wave if you can hear me. I see you on the screen. Please wave. No, nothing's happening.
Okay.
Okay, so we saw the video,
Yeah, so you've seen the video, yeah? Okay,
We've
we
seen,
can go back to my
but without
presentation.
sound.
You got sound, good.
Sorry.
Yeah. With no sound, okay. Yeah, don't worry. Just cut it off and go back to the presentation.
Okay, we're ready? Yes, we're ready. Thank you. So you can continue, please.
I can continue, yeah, okay. So hopefully you got a bit of a flavour of what, what it's like to work there. And I felt quite proud that, we've managed to get to that place where people are prepared to go in a video and talk about working there. I mean, these are people that I work with every day. They're not, they're not actors. And they're talking really positively about working there. So how did we get there? So I think we have done a lot of work as an organisation to try to understand our shared values. And these are not values that are created by our board or our managers. These are values that we've kind of worked on together as a whole team. A few things we did that were quite straightforward, really. We closed the whole building down. We do that once a year now. That's something we would have never done before, but it gives us a chance to all come together, whether you're working in the kitchen, the projection box, an event staff, or so on, and to really sort of interrogate our values, look at how that affects your job, whether you can work to those values in your role, whether you're cutting vegetables or you're showing films, but also doing some training together, getting to know each other and working together on topics like the environment. So we have various working groups across the organisation which allow people to kind of do things together beyond their direct jobs. The other thing that we've done is an annual survey to kind of understand who's working for us. How do they feel about working there, and what can we do about it if there's things that are not great and things that need improvement? I realised that it's not something that every country might be able to do legally. There's different rules around how much information you can capture, but in the UK there's a real drive from groups from underrepresented backgrounds or disability groups to try to understand who's working for you and what you're doing about it. So we're looking at representation. That's one of the things that we want, to have an organization that is representative of our community, because we believe that it can really help developing an organization that's relevant, and programs that are relevant, and so on. But also in terms of management, when you find out that, as you can see on the slide that I'm showing you now, 18% of your staff are neurodivergent, that means you probably need to do something about it. So as a result, we did some training with everyone so that we all understand, autism, neurodivergence better, and we can hopefully ensure that staff that are on that spectrum can have a good experience of working here. And other things that have come out of it are around making sure staff can voice their opinions in different ways. So we have an anonymous email that goes to our CEO if staff are unhappy or things are going on that they'd like addressed. There's ways of talking about these things, whether that's through our human resource team, through line management, or through that anonymous email. We've done some work with underrepresented groups in terms of offering them coaching. We were finding that a lot of people from those groups were joining the organisation, but then not necessarily progressing. So we've set up a kind of mentoring scheme for those groups specifically, to try to look at how can we help them progress within the organisation, but perhaps also beyond the organisation. We try to be quite transparent in decision making. There's a lot of anxiety we found in the survey about how decisions are made. So that's an area that we're still working on, trying to explain why we do things, how we do things as a management team. And the other thing that's been quite successful is we've looked at, that's come out of the survey and us realising we were not as representative as we'd like to be, is to look at how we recruit people. So, we used to recruit and sometimes have a very short window for people to apply. So we're doing a lot of work to try to have a much longer window of about 2 months when we're recruiting, which is allowing us to do a lot more outreach, to get a lot more candidates applying. We also have quite explicit text about the fact that we're keen to get people that are perhaps less represented in our teams, and we encourage those applications. We encourage people to apply from perhaps different sectors that have skills that can align with what we need. And we also offer chats before application stage to make sure people that might not realise the job's for them can have a chat with us and see whether it could be for them. The whole idea is to try to broaden our pool and not always go with people that are just like us, essentially. The other things that we've done is we were finding some people were not coming across very well in the application forms. So we looked at doing chats with people as well as having the application form, pre-interview chats, which allow us to kind of hear a little bit more about the person and tease things out, and recognize that some people are not very good in writing or not very good at selling themselves, but it doesn't mean they can't do the job. We also provide all the interview questions ahead of time. So the idea is we don't want to put you under a horrible sort of pressure. We'd like you to have a good experience with us if you come for an interview. And we also want to get the best out of you during that interview. We don't want you to freak out and be scared. So these are all little things that we've tried, and I think it's really helped us become a more diverse organisation, and a sort of kinder organisation as well. The other things is obviously it's one thing recruiting people from different backgrounds, but then how are they going to feel when they join your team? So we're doing a lot as well in terms of like within the organisation, making sure we've got good resources in place, we've got human resource We do training to try to sort of make sure we're quite inclusive. This is a section of our website where staff can find out all sorts of things, like different policies that are in place. We've got policies about if somebody dies in your family, what happens? Can you take some time off? If you're pregnant, what's the process? Just making sure people have got a lot of information at hand, and also managers can signpost their teams to that and feel supported. We've introduced new things like a menstruation policy and so on. If any of you are interested in any of these policies, I'm very happy to kind of share them with you. It's a lot of different elements. Another thing that, I mean, I'm sure you do already, I hope you do already, is have job descriptions. And we've done a lot of work recently about job descriptions. They're obviously very important in terms of like selecting the right person to do a job. Also, if you can have some sort of consistent way of grading job descriptions, that helps in terms of, I think, perceptions of fairness and transparency among staff, so they understand which grade they're in, why they're being paid a certain amount, how pay rises work within the organizations. So I think the more transparency you can have, the better, really, with these things. But also it helps, of course, make sure applicants know what they do, what they're doing with their job, and create framework for performance. And that's, you know, a framework for good performance, but also for bad performance. If someone's not performing, the job description can be really helpful in sort of unpicking that and acting on it. So we've done quite a lot to try to make the job descriptions a really useful tool. Obviously, things like having a really clear purpose and set of responsibilities. But more importantly, having key performance indicators, which are essentially what you can manage performance on. So things that you can measure the person's performance on. And you've got to be careful there not to put things like, you know, the cinema is busy, because that's a lot to put on one person. But things that they can realistically really influence within their roles, and things that make sure you can keep track on how they're doing. The other thing that I'd really recommend, if you don't do it already, is to have performance reviews. And performance reviews are not the same as, you know, chats about how things are going with the cinema or with the day-to-day job. They're a point of reflection on how that person is finding things, and how you're finding things working with them as well. And I'm always surprised by how much comes out within those sessions. You know, I meet my team every week, we have chats, and then suddenly during the performance review, lots of things come out that perhaps they haven't brought to my attention when we were talking about delivery. So I mean, it's really important to think about the format for these things, for them to be a useful exercise. I'm just going to see whether I can show you quickly what we do, and I'm happy to share the questions in there, so don't feel that you've got to write notes. But I think a few things to think about is where you do the review. You don't want to do it in front of all the other staff. So agreeing together a place where you will be able to do this meeting in a productive way. Giving a bit of advance notice to the person so they can think about the questions. Some people hate being put on the spot, so give them time to think about the questions so they feel like they can be prepared. But yeah, and it's making sure there's open questions about what they've accomplished, what they find challenging, areas where they might do more of the things they do well, and get support with the things they do badly or find difficult, and always have time frames about how the actions that you agree on would be completed. Looking at training and resources that could be useful, again, clear timeframes for doing that. Looking at career goals, sometimes that can help if someone is stuck in the job and they're frustrated. You know, you can get them to think about life outside the organization that you're in, and maybe help them move on from the organization by, you know, acknowledging that, you know, they've perhaps they're ready to move on to something new. Going back to the job descriptions, that should be a real important part of the review in you know, in our opinion. Is it still accurate? Are there new responsibilities? Does that need to be reviewed? Does that mean that you get a, you know, a better pay or a different role? And we also do a bit of work on the values, so making sure people understand what how they're working on the values within their own jobs. So those are just, you know, this is just an example of how we do it. And then I think also the other thing that we've been doing a lot of is training. Some of it's come out of the survey, some of it comes out of the reviews when people are bringing up things. Perhaps they've had a bad experience at Watershed, you know, or they'd like to better understand people that are different from them. So we do a lot of training. We've done a lot of training around anti-racism in the last few years. Things like bias, you know, we all bring quite a lot of bias to our roles, which are based on our, you know, our experience of life and the kind of people that we've mixed with. So to kind of try to do that work as a team can be really, really helpful. We also have different types of training for staff. Some of it is generated by the staff. We do a BSL practice of signing every week for staff, especially for front-facing staff that are working in the cafe or working at front of house. Yeah, and I mean, all these things I think might seem, you know, like a lot of work behind the scenes, but I think, you know, if you do that work behind the scene, you're likely to be a lot better in terms of how you deal with customers, how you deal with partners, and you know, but in terms of what you get out of your team, really, the more involved they feel, the more proactive they'll become, the more things they will bring to the table in terms of like improving the organization. You know, and it's invaluable if you can get to a place where your team feels, you know, like they belong somewhere. I think that's it's a real result, and also it makes it, you know, more enjoyable environment to be in, and something we're all proud of. I can't think of many organizations where the staff would be willing to make a film about working somewhere and be so genuine and, you know, authentic in terms of how they did that. We didn't have to pay them, and you know, that's something I feel really proud of. I mean, it doesn't mean that there aren't challenges. I think especially in the times we're in with complex things around identity politics, anxiety, different generations having different attitude to work and so on. There's a lot to grapple with. But I think that's why it's very important to think about training and the kind of forums where you come together, making sure your team's kind of fully engaged with what you're trying to do. So I think I'm going to end it here. I know I've given you a lot of information in a very short space of time. There's a lot of resources on our website, which I'm happy to kind of share after this. And yeah, I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah,
if the technology allows.
Yes, Mehdi, thank you very much for your presentations. And now we have time for a couple of questions. If you guys want to ask, use this opportunity to get more details. Anyone? there's no questions? Oh, there's one.
Hi. I was wondering, you say that that job descriptions are key.
Would be maybe nicer. Yeah? Can you
can-
see us? Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
I see you and I can hear you.
Yeah. Hi. You said that job descriptions are key, but job descriptions are also dynamic and evolving, just as people are also evolving and organizations. How do you deal with an eventual mismatch between job descriptions and people and organizations?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you that it is a dynamic thing, and that's why the reviews are key. So having that opportunity to formally review, like, how are things going? Is the job, actually the job that was described? Is the person actually taking on a different type of responsibility? But to actually acknowledge that and to put it in writing and acknowledge that if they've suddenly taken on loads more responsibility, they should probably be paid more money for doing it. I think in our sector, we have a tendency to just add and add and add to jobs as people progress, rather than thinking, well, actually, you need to delegate now some of what you used to do. So maybe there's a new job. So yeah, I completely agree. It's a constant, it's in flux, and you have to be responsive. But I'd recommend we, as a sector, we all think about what's the process for doing that. And does your team understand that there's a process, or do they just take on more things and then get frustrated, that it's not being recognized, their work's not being recognized. So I think because we are fueled on passion often in this sector, like people go in because they love film, we can sometimes forget that, people still need to have a life-work balance. They still need, they might have children, things are changing in their lives. So yeah, the job might change because of the organization. It might change because of the person. And having those formal moments where you can acknowledge that. We have all sorts of processes, for instance, around flexible working. So if people have got kids, they might not want to work at certain times. They might want flexible hours. And if we can accommodate it, we will. Obviously, it has an impact on other things, which is why you need that, I think, that sort of formal moment where you recognize that and you look at the impact. And sometimes you have to turn these things down. Sometimes it's not possible to let someone do flexible working in a specific role if they're a projectionist, or I don't know. But yeah, flexibility, but with some structure and clarity from all involved about how these decisions are made, how it connects with the wider organization.
Okay, thank you so much, Mary, for spending the time with us. Sending you warm greetings from Sofia. And yes, that will be... Is there any question? No more question. Oh, there's one. Sorry. Do you want to stand in front so she can...
Oh, it's not really a question, but hello. It's just to know if we will have access to the review form, because I'm kind of interested. I think you said, that they were available on the website, but just to be sure.
Yeah, the review form is not available on the website, but I'm happy to share it with the Europa Cinemas team. There's actually a link on my form, but don't fill it in. I just will think you work for us.
Okay. Thank you so much then. Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. And I hope you have a really productive few days left. Take care.
Hey, Maggie, I got one question, if that's okay with you. Just to
Oh,
wrap it up,
yeah.
I'm Tom, I'm the other leader together with Ola. Just to wrap it up, can you say in like 3 phrases, what would be your top 3 actions to do if you don't have anything to do? What would be your top 3?
My top 3 in terms of managing people?
Yes.
Yeah. My top 3 would be get to know your staff as people.
Okay, 3, get to know your staff.
Get to know your staff as people, yeah, not just somebody that's delivering a set of tasks. think about the structure around job descriptions and reviews. And
now
finally,
the number one.
Yeah, so we've got number one, haven't we? Number two
Oh,
is
sorry.
think about structure in terms of job descriptions and reviews. And then number three would be make sure you get together as a whole team, so you avoid segregation within the teams, even if it's just once a year. That's it. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, many thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Applause.
Thanks. Bye.
Oh, this is a sign. Okay, good. Well, we're going to the mini workshops. And our idea was that we already made the group, so you're 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And it's actually the same idea that we had yesterday. But yesterday you were given a task, so design the worst or the best, or do it for a youth audience, whatever. Now you go into your group and maybe you can pick something from the topics that we were discussing related to human resource